Aid, you are about to be mute.
You
And
took
we're
away
live.
his speech?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 2100 on the Brushfire Mind on a Friday night, and welcome to the show. I've got Kate Robinson with us, joining us for the first time, and Steve, our old standby. And tonight we're talking ethics. So I've got a little pre-made statement that I want to read. And unfortunately, I let my wife chatter and distract me, and I forgot to pull it up. So bear with me half a click. Here we go. Bing, bang, that one.
We can edit that if we ever get around to editing.
I started the other day.
Oh, did you?
Uh,
So anyway, because dead air sucks,
yeah, you go ahead and start talking.
hell, I don't know. That's the second time this show subject has changed this particular day. I'm just ethics. I don't want to steal your soliloquy. I think ethics are a good idea. I don't think there are enough of them, and I think some what are mistaken for ethics are simply convenient excuses at the time. Not a good lead-in. Dude, you're burying your stuff way too deep.
Yeah, I screwed up. I forgot where I put it. Here we go. I'm just going to steal it off of Facebook again.
You're a wordy bitch anyway. Just
I
speak.
was smart enough to post it on Facebook for everybody to respond to, and
Is that the piece that I quoted?
yeah,
That wasn't. That was socialism.
nope, that's ethics.
That's a horrible approach to ethics.
Well, it's about origin of ethics and a little bit of discussion about some specific. That's not it.
Should I read
Well,
it?
I kind of shit the bird on this one now, didn't I?
Yeah. But we're gonna. Do we have anybody watching live? Because this would be funny as fuck.
Nope. Thank God for that right now. I know where I saved it.
What's horrible is I have to actually search you to find that post. It's not showing up.
Okay, so yeah, the post that you
I
read
got it.
earlier. No, it's not the post. I've got the actual document here.
Oh.
So the post on Facebook that you read earlier was actually my response to someone responding to this uh, academic writing that I published earlier today on, or I guess I published it last night on a forum for ethics philosophy in upper division academia.
Okay, because your lead in on what I saw and reposted was socialism, but not only that. So yeah, that's explains why that sentence didn't make sense to me.
Gotcha.
I filled in the blanks wrong.
Funny thing about ethics and morals is they get muddy in everybody's system. I believe that ethics as a conceptual framework of dealing with one another is, as are all things, driven by pure profit motive originally. Men first communicated with one another in a sort of commerce of security, banding together to enjoy safety in numbers against the wide and threatening world of predators, starvation, and exposure. I suspect that killing other men was the first ethical quandary, and is still a tricky one. It is difficult to say that it is always wrong to kill, as holding to that means that one must watch evil men cause harm and not allow them to do the and not only allow them to do the harm, but also allow them to continue to do more and greater harm. Batman said that if you kill a killer, the number of killers in the world stays the same. Of course, that math breaks down pretty quickly when you kill more than one killer. This is how we have come eventually to distinguish the idea of murder as being distinct from the idea of killing. It is a subcategory that requires the malicious intent of the murderer. Such a distinction muddies even further as you get more than one group of men banding together to common purpose, and war becomes a part of the vernacular.
Good idea.
Yeah, I'm going to mute you for a second, Steve. I'll bring you back in just a minute. And we don't have any viewers, and we're live. I hate to do it to you guys, but I'm going to start over so that I have a clean recording when we go forward. We haven't gotten very far in. It's not a long piece. So here we go. Funny thing about ethics and morals is they get muddy in everybody's system. I believe that ethics, as a conceptual framework of dealing with one another, is, as are all things, driven by pure profit motive originally. Men first communicated with one another in a sort of commerce of security, banding together to enjoy safety in numbers against the wide and threatening world of predators, starvation, and exposure. I suspect that killing other men was the first ethical quandary, and is still a tricky one. It is difficult to say that it is always wrong to kill, as holding to that means that one must watch evil men cause harm, and not only allow them to do the harm, but also allow them to continue on to do more and greater harm. Batman said that if you kill a killer, the number of killers in the world stays the same. But of course, that math breaks down pretty quickly when you kill more than one killer. This is how we have eventually come to distinguish the idea of murder as being distinct from the idea of killing. It is a subcategory that requires the malicious intent of the murderer. Such a distinction muddies even further as you get more than one group of men banding together to common purpose, and war becomes a part of the vernacular. Some wars are about who gets to keep what they have or get more of what they want. One may argue that this is tantamount to imperial expansion, and they may even be right, but what of the marauding horde? Sometimes it is the case that one group of men is simply intent on taking all they can and moving on, leaving no unenslaved survivors. Can one really argue, in that case, that it would be wrong to take up arms in defense? I tend personally to hold that when the cause of a man or his organization to do harm, then it is right to to make him unable to do it. I focus here on the sin of murder for a very specific reason. In law, we hold that crime is harm. For there to be a crime, there must also be a victim, to whom harm has been done. In any law that there is not an apparent individual victim, it is that we are alleging that society itself is the victim of the harm. Essentially, all sins are murder. To steal is to take away part of a man's life. To enslave, to take from a man the value of his labors and leave him unwhole. To be an adulterer is to carve off a part of someone and to devalue his life. To hate one's father is to degrade the father's value as a man. Imagine what harm must that father have done that it would seed murder in the heart of his son. Just to sample a little clarity on this idea that all crime is essentially murder in degrees, I would like to take a few words on substance prohibition in illustrating the misapplication of law against crime assuming harm. In the case of substance use, which we must take separately from abuse, it is that one voluntarily consumes a substance for recreation and relaxation. Whether this ruins his life, harms his family, or leads him into a life of crime is tangential to the act itself of using the substance. I mention this to reiterate that, as crime is harm, according to my assertion that the actual use of the substance does not itself cause harm. The harm that surrounds substance abuse is a whole set of crimes, most of which are actually crimes with or without the presence of the substance. Now let's take to Socrates. Socrates, as we see in Crito, is nearly a pacifist within his own philosophy. However, he was also a soldier who fought in war and took lives in so doing. He also made room for the defense of self and of the state as morally acceptable. So even in his position that one ought always to be moral, there is room for killing, but not for malicious murder, which encompasses all other crime by degrees. In this I will say that Socrates is likely the most perfect of the five we are discussing here. For Aristotle, the reasoning mind must act according to reason to be virtuous and thereby to flourish, and so, of course, this virtuous activity must include bravely defending the weak against evil. Reason tells us that not only is it important to deal fairly with one another and to see that others flourish as their flourishing also contributes to your own growth and happiness, but that we ought not to leave evil men in the world to cause harm and stop us all flourishing together. Essentially, if we are to flourish, but we allow evil to continue to cause us harm, then there will come a time when evil stops on its own, as all the harm has been caused and there are no more virtuous men left to harm. This, of course, cannot be allowed to pass. Kant. Now, I like the rigidity of Kant. His system seems pretty neat and tidy and is almost libertarian in its way. I'm a big fan of maximum liberty, individual responsibility, and the dignity and autonomy of the individual. I also find lying to be most repugnant and do hold it to be a harm. Lying is in fact worse than just a harm. It is a harm caused with intent and for profit at the detriment of a victim. Here, Kant and I are like-minded, but he doesn't seem to leave room for the defense of self. I'm sure that in a real conversation with the man, he would tell you that he would fight like the devil to stay alive if someone were trying to hurt him. But in his system, he puts it forward, it can be argued that it is not acceptable. I think, however, that if one is the victim of being used as a means and not as an end in themselves, slaves, for example, then it would be prudent in Kant's view to retake one's precious autonomy. I will address Mill, but only briefly, because he's utilitarian. I find utilitarianism to be short-sighted, vulgar, and violently wrong-headed. It is the philosophy of justification for all evils that 1/2 plus 1 of all people can choose to cause any degree of murder to the other half for their pleasure alone and be purely and perfectly justified. If the boat is on fire, then you can lock the 4 engineers in the engine room to burn to death so that the other 300 members of the crew survive. But just taking the money away from the people who have it because you want it, that doesn't jive. Nagel is a problem. I've read his essay 3 times now, and my most distinct conclusion so far is this. He's a lawyer. He has a bad habit of working in half answers and vagaries that make it difficult to nail down his argument. He really doesn't say that moral luck is a thing, so much as he asks the reader if he thinks it's a thing. I will definitely say that he was ahead of his time. I imagine that he's thrilled with technology as it has developed now, because the way he wrote that essay on moral luck, it is as if he were anticipating Facebook with a comment section for people to respond to his questions. Incidentally, Nagel is still alive. Now that I've just written this, I think I really want to go out of my way to try and ask him what he thinks of that sort of forum. So, let's go ahead and take all of his postulations as flat assertions for a moment, assuming that incidents and circumstance can indeed mitigate or exacerbate culpability. My God, is this man a lawyer? I am deeply drawn to ask, to what degree of expansion or separation must we consider these attributing factors? Let me tackle this with reference to the example of having your foot stepped on. So our foot gets stepped on. We're in a crowd. Somebody steps on our foot, and we're angry. We learn pretty quickly that the guy that stepped on our foot was pushed by somebody. So we learn that the offender was pushed in a crowd and had no intent to stomp our foot. Quite reasonably, our ire is assuaged, and we disassume his guilt by way of sheer incident. Is it then prudent to shift blame to the man that pushed him? Perhaps there is a third man who pushed the pusher. Do I follow this causal chain until I come to a cab driver running a red light that caused the first of 100 pushers in an unlucky chain leading to my throbbing foot? Perhaps not. However, what if I'm actually injured? Maybe my ankle is broken and I will not be able to work for some time. In such a case, am I entitled to reparations to make me whole? If so, from whom? I can tell you as a licensed insurance agent, we would be looking for that cab because he has the larger probable policy to claim on. But that is the problem with Mill's moral luck. It is the decentralizing nature of culpability creating a potentially never-ending shift of blame away from first causes, at which Aristotle would have cringed, and quite probably laying it at the feet of someone so removed from the harm caused that they could even be reasonably expected to be aware that harm had in fact been caused. Essentially, Socrates is about as close to right as anybody can hope to get for now. Aristotle is solid but not perfect, fallible man and all. Kant is good but a little short-sighted. Mill is as wrong as a suspension bridge tomato. And finally, Nagel could go either way, but I would definitely want him on retainer. So,
Great, you broke it.
There we go.
Now I got vocals back.
Somehow I was suddenly muted.
Yeah, it wasn't me. I can only unmute and mute me. I did not affect you. Somehow.
Cade, for some reason, I cannot unmute. Oh, hey, Cade, unmute yourself.
Why is Cade sitting on the wall?
Cade is sideways.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but you're still
Yay.
sideways.
Yeah, I have no idea why I'm sideways. When I was doing the dishes, I had it flipped around, and when I came in here, I flipped it back, and it just went halfway and just gave up.
What are you broadcasting through?
iPad. So, thoughts? Let me hear them.
Cade is distracting me. What in the world is that? Oh, it's a Cade.
How's that? Am I right? Am I in the...
You're right side up, but there's too much of you in the frame.
Yep, hold on.
It's having trouble discerning your shirt from your beard, sir.
I have that problem too. I comb my shirt a lot.
Yeah, this is gonna.
So I don't want to comment yet. I want to let Steve get into it. Chris, you get into it, and then I will jump in if I can jump in.
You chicken shit.
I know, I really am. And I'm not that smart, and I'm ADD, so I missed half of it. But I'm sure it was brilliant.
Diagnosed and medicated. Thanks much.
Yeah.
So to put it as bluntly as I can, I did not process all of it, which is my problem with long-winded philosophy. Is most of it seems to be a whole bunch of pontificating upon a point that is unfucking necessary in a conversation. Aside from that, it was beautifully written. I do dig it.
Well, I appreciate that.
I'm sorry. It got so long-winded and so wordy, I forgot what the original point was.
Oh,
I really did.
All crime is murder.
Yeah, well, duh.
No, but
At some point, it's at least a lesser murder than a full murder, death, kill. But you are still... A lot of people talk, even if you look at the death of spirit thing, it'll cross over to that. If you're taking someone's money away, you're taking away their will to make more because they don't get to keep it anyway. Why work for something you can't keep?
Actually, I addressed that separately.
Of course you did. Not that it's a bad thing. It just I completely missed the point of your entire soliloquy. I apologize.
Yeah, when you take someone's money away by force, you are taking with it the time that he invested to earn that money, the potential time value of its forward investment, and the commercial potency of the victim.
Yes, stop there. Because that series of syllables already takes so much mental process, you've got to break that shit down.
Okay, so when you rob someone, you're taking away a piece of his life. So you take some money from him.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the amount. First, you have degraded his current buying power.
Mm-hmm.
You have taken away from him the ability to operate in the commerce world.
Right.
Next, you have taken away the time, the hours that he spent in work, or whatever he did to earn that money. You're taking away from him the past.
Right.
You're actually shortening his birth date up to him and shortening his life from behind. And you're taking away the time value of that money's potential going forward. Because any money you have right now that you're not spending has the capacity to earn interest. That's one of the problems with the tax code. We pay in more than we owe in taxes, and oh yeah, you get it back at the end of the year. Yeah, well, okay, so who's paying my interest?
Yeah, you don't get that part. That's what the government counts on, but nobody realizes that. Because, no offense, 2% on your savings for the year, It's not that much money. 2% on a couple of billion? It's good money. And the government's probably getting more than 2% because, well, they rate what they get. So.
Well, sort of. That's actually a much more complicated series.
Yes. Go on. We're digressing.
But the idea here is talking about basically the primitive origin of ethics. So I'm actually contending that ethics are not necessarily a naturally occurring internal function. They are a necessary commercial product of man.
Of a society's value structure, yes.
Seeking to do business with himself.
Well, all right, Chris.
Yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily mean business, but it is definitely a social construct. Ethics change as values change, and the values of a society will determine its given ethics and what's acceptable and what's not, and it does change over time. Go ahead, Kate, sorry.
No, that's fine. If you look at it pre-society, if you look at ethics as it would have been in a family group or even when it expanded to a community, ethics would have sprung, like everything else, from our baser instincts. So ethics would have been as a simple question. I don't think the first ethical question would have been whether or not to take a man's life. However, that would have been not far down the road. The first ethical question is, do I stay around and help the mother of my child raise that offspring? Do I provide for them? Do I let them provide for themselves? Things that we look at that we don't read too much into unless we're talking about other animals. That's the beginning of the ethics, I believe, is the formation of the family unit and the formation of couples that devote themselves to one another to further that species and to maintain that family unit. Then you go into, should I take the life of the person who is coming into my territory where I do my hunting, where I do my farming eventually? I mean, farming was way down the line, but do I take the life of this person, or do I try to bring them into my community and expand my community? I think that's the proper starting point of ethics, though, since you're talking about the starting point. Now, I mean, I'm dragging on something that I don't know. It's almost a moot point, because what I want to know is where that line of thinking, where that philosophy, where the conversation is going, how the definition of ethics applies and how it divides us currently in a societal level, in a religious level, in a political level.
Okay. So, and this is one of the reasons that we study philosophy, so that we can understand how those origins begin the development and how the development carries us to where we are, and where different tangents in that development happened that took us on track or off track, as one would have it. So the modern liberal, the guys that are in charge right now, they are egalitarians and utilitarians. Egalitarians hold that that everything has to be fair. And the utilitarian model, which blends nicely with the egalitarian model, and both have massive, massive problems. But the utilitarian model holds to what they call the general happiness principle. Basically, an action is morally good or morally just to the degree that it causes more happiness and less unhappiness. And if it makes more people happy than it makes unhappy, then it's a good action. For example, if all the Germans decide to kill all the Jews, that's perfectly acceptable under the utilitarian model, as long as the Germans outnumber the Jews by 1. If you've got 51 Germans and 49 Jews, and the 51 Germans decide to kill the 49 Jews, then Mill and the utilitarians say, good to go.
Oh, so majority rule then would be an acceptable thing.
Absolute majority rule.
Yeah.
Pure one vote majority rule. Utilitarianism is the only philosophy that can ethically justify genocide. So, amusingly, I'm morally comfortable with genocide, and I find utilitarianism offensive.
What's the problem with majority rule? I mean, obviously, if we're not talking about Hitler leading that majority and it ending up in genocide.
First off, you have to
in our model, what's wrong with in our American model? What is wrong with the majority rule?
In our American model, we have hit that 51%, nearly that 51% of Americans pay no taxes, and a large chunk of those receive some benefits, some sort of welfare benefits, stuff like that. But it is actually the case now that the majority of Americans do not pay taxes, which means, and even those that don't receive welfare, we drive on roads, we enjoy the security provided by the police, by the military. We have access to municipal water, all that kind of stuff. All the stuff that we get out of our tax money, other than welfare, which I could do without personally. But most Americans, by a slim margin now, pay no income tax. Even if they pay in a little bit through the year, they get it all back. That's the majority of Americans now, which means, as Herman Cain would put it, there are more people in the wagon than pulling the wagon.
Yeah.
It means that the majority vote, the majority vote now belongs to the people who have a personal incentive to increase taxes and do not suffer any harm from that tax increase. Now,
no physical harm. It harms them on a different level, but no immediate threat.
Right. The vast majority of that majority is where they are because their comprehension of mathematics and economics isn't adequate to process the harm caused to themselves by the detrimental effects on the economy when taxes are increased so steadily and so exponentially.
My more simple, non-authorian, is that a word? I'm no author. Less wordy approach would simply be majority rule does nothing to protect the constitutional stance of individual liberty. The right of the individual here, when the country was founded and as it was meant to be, outweighs majority rule. The massive opinion doesn't matter if it infringes on the natural rights of any other citizen.
Well, and Cade and I were talking about this earlier before we went and saw Batman versus Superman.
Why?
Which was a little disappointing, but not bad. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. A little slow, not bad.
Shouldn't have happened, but anyway.
Affleck was
different episode.
I would almost argue that Affleck was a better Batman than fucking
Bale.
Christian Bale.
Shut up. Next.
You
shut up. Next.
No, seriously.
Next.
Seriously.
Next.
So here's my
I need a control panel. I can't mute Cade.
Political. I'm not talking about Batman and Superman. Political. Political correctness. Now this is a different conversation as well. I'm sure you guys have already had it on a previous show. Political correctness, though, is turning a minority into a majority overnight, and the majority is bowing in order to get them. And this is all about getting votes. It's just like Lyndon Johnson really started it. Or,
go ahead. I dare you to say that one out loud.
I'm not saying that one out loud, but the point remains. What's that? Oh, I got a little itch here. Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, but
dude, that one went through my head 3 times last week alone.
it goes through my head a lot because it's everywhere. It's freaking everywhere. And when you've got families like the Clintons, it'll never go anywhere either. It's here to stay. But we're bowing. The reason I said what's the problem with majority rule, that was a genuine question. That was not me saying I agree with majority rule. The problem is so many things are being catered to special interest groups, which are the minority. And I mean, my gosh, you can't put out a line of clothing anymore because it doesn't include fat people. Well, I'm fat people. You know what? I can go to fat people places, but we don't want to offend anybody. We've got to cast women and minorities in movie roles because they're not being properly represented. Well, hell, if Black America is 13% of the population, why would they need 13%, more than 13% of the lead roles in Hollywood? And we overcompensate everything we do to the point where equality, the word equality, is a joke. That's not even a thing. What equality means is the inferior become overnight the superior, and the superior are somehow scared of the inferior.
Yeah.
The majority are terrified of the minority in this country. Every special interest group has a louder voice than all of us put together.
I won't argue with that, and you are absolutely correct. And everything, I know some of our shows run a little bit long and they're a little hard to follow, but we've touched on a lot of things since we started this. And at the base of this is government is so large, so cumbersome, so multifaceted. All of this stuff comes from so many places. When you talk about special interest, you're not just talking about things like most people take, oh, special interest. They're talking about the gun lobby. They're talking about the LGBT lobby. I'm stopping there because I cannot keep the acronym running longer than that. The, how to put it, anti-hunters are a special interest group. All of these special interest groups also have to share space with the corporation lobbies that are pushing for other sides of this and have a whole lot more money to throw around to tweak things around. And I'm not a big thing that, corporations run our government, outside of the fact that we know our government can be bought, and he who dies with the most money, well, controls the decisions. Or did control the decisions.
Right.
But when you talk about that, you are right. Part of the special interest thing has been the visibility. It's not like the LGBT community hasn't always been there.
Yeah.
It's a matter of what brought it to the forefront. It's not that the gun lobby hasn't always been there. It's a matter of who's touting it in what direction and how much camera time it's given. And given a media who tends to pick sides, and I'm not picking one over the other here because all forms of media have one bent or another. They really do. Unless you're, well, no, all of them have some sort of bent, one way or the other. So when it comes to the special interest, yes, those are predominantly what are given all of the benefit of the doubt in this. And I don't think it's as simple as a squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing when it comes to appeasement. I think there is more to it than that, and I think there has been an inherent guilt, and this doesn't follow color, it doesn't follow gender, it doesn't follow religious belief, but there has been such a backbend by the people who have found a need to keep power or how to garner power in all the promises it takes to please the people from all these walks of life, and all of a sudden you're making promises to everybody. Fulfilling those is ignoring a mass majority of people. But the other part of the argument you can see is the majority rule thing benefits when it agrees with you. It's a detriment when it doesn't agree with you. So majority rule saying, yes, we should just altogether do this thing. And the other half says, well, no, you're discriminating against 0.7% of the population. You can't possibly do that. The right answer is not, but everyone else wants it. Because at that point, we wind up like Chris says, I say it can't happen. It can happen, but the detriment of it happening is the fact that your society ceases to produce. As Chris said, if the majority rules that all the rich people's money belong to us, well, the rich people are going to stop doing what it takes to be rich because they're not going to gain any of it. If they stop doing what it takes to be rich, the people who have never done that to get rich won't know how to do it. So where does the money then come from? So the majority rule, without realizing, as Chris put, their intelligence level, education level, whatever, they don't realize that the more you take away from the people who are producing, the less incentive there is to produce. If you cannot produce, you can no longer provide.
Right. And like I said, if equality was the ceiling,
Yeah.
as it always begins, equality is the goal, but it always shoots past that. It becomes a rocket ship, and it gathers enough fuel to it's just
Yes,
it's
equality
impossible.
is not enough. We need an advantage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when the majority, especially when it comes to commerce, the majority is very, very important because businesses make money catering to the majority. That's how money is made. That's how money, more specifically, that's how money is not lost.
You've never paid attention to boutique guitar pedals. Those make big money by catering to a very select few.
Yeah, but I bet they
Well,
don't produce crap out of them.
but that's also what's called. I mean, that's a niche market. Niche
It
market
is.
equals high markup.
That's why using economics to approach that, economics never acts the way you expect it to when you put it under a macro level or a micro level. Sorry, macro is the big thing, right? But overall, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. I had something developing there, and then Chris and I kind of played off each other.
Oh, me? No, you're taking it exactly where I wanted you to, and expounding on your thing. So I'm good, man. I'm just sitting back listening.
Well, no, don't sit back and listen. You need to talk because I need to gather my thoughts again.
Okay. All right. So if we swing this thing back around, because Chris can tell you I'm a rabbit trailer. If we swing it back around to ethics, my point kind of still stands about catering to a minority. And I know this is not where it started when we were talking about majority rule, but ethics is redefined with it situationally.
Mm-hmm.
It constantly ethics is redefined situationally, and usually it's redefined through majority guilt, and it's placed us in individual businesses and government. It's placed us in a situation where we're crawling to get out, and it's also put us in a situation where the great caterers, the great catering party of the last 100 years, especially since Lyndon Johnson and that, but for the past 100 years has been the Democratic Party, and it's hard to foresee a time when we will not have a Democratic president. Or at least it's easy to foresee a time that if we had a Republican president or a Libertarian president, they would only survive for 4 years. And then special interest groups and the like, and people who just want stuff for free, like all these freaking stupid Bernie Sanders hipsters,
Right.
will keep pushing the Democratic Party back into a leadership position, back into a powerful position. I don't see it relenting because they've so successfully labeled the right as a bunch of rich white people who only want to take from you.
Bigots, xenophobe, homophobes.
Yeah, I've been phobically waved over, so. But you see what I'm saying. This is what's so scary about when it comes to the definition of ethics. It's redefined by every candidate. It's redefined by every movement.
It's divided by every voting cycle, honestly.
Yes. I mean, Bernie Sanders is a trend. He is a trend vote.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
he's a Kardashian.
Absolutely.
Bernie Sanders is a Kardashian. It's like I said on Facebook, I guess it was yesterday. Bernie Sanders presents himself as Black Friday. But Bernie Sanders is not Black Friday. Bernie Sanders is a Columbus Day sale. He's one of those. It's like you look back the day after and you're like, well, hell, I just spent more money on gas to get to the mall than I did actually save money on things that I didn't even want in the first place.
Which was a brilliant way to put it, yeah.
Nobody likes Columbus Day sales.
That's
Except
right.
apparently hipsters.
Unless you're buying a mattress.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's the only deal to be found.
Yeah. But yeah, it's put us in a really scary place. The special interest groups go out in droves, and they don't give two shits about the other special interests. They care about their special interests. But the other special interesters are all in the same camp, and they all hold hands and sing Kumbaya, even though they hate one another. They just don't know it. And they elevate these people like Sanders and these other Democrats who make a career out of pandering to these people. It elevates them into power, and it keeps them in power, and that's scary as hell.
Mm-hmm. Somebody actually in the Sanders vein, I saw come across my feed, somebody defending Sanders as not having been an establishment candidate. How long has he been in government?
Since the 80s.
All his working, quote unquote.
Oh, you used the wrong word.
Life.
Well, I mean, in fairness, he's only been employed since he was 40.
Yeah. And only been employed where?
Bernie Sanders is a hobbit in a picket line.
He is an absolute do-nothing, ride on someone else's goodwill because of the vote.
Yeah.
What did they say? He proposed one bill in the entire time he's been a legislator?
Well, Obama voted present on the majority of the stuff when he was rising to the top.
Yes, but that didn't bother anybody either, so I don't see why
exactly. That's
absolute lack of substance should bother anyone on that side either.
The right things are not bothering the right people.
That's right. You'd think that people who want the disadvantaged to have more would be more willing to give the disadvantaged more opportunities, not take from someone else to give to the disadvantaged who then cannot recreate what has happened to them.
It's like I say about Hollywood all the time. I mean, you know, artists are supposedly inherently liberal, and again, like how many times have you said, Steve, we're liberal. I want my word back, is what you've said.
Absolutely, I say it all the time.
But Hollywood, I'm thinking, my God, if you people would open your wallets as much as you open your fucking mouths, you know, we may not have a problem with homelessness and children going hungry and all these things that you want to talk about all the time. Do you really need a yacht? Do you need another house? You know, I mean, these are things that they ask corporate CEOs.
Yeah.
Well, do you really need that? I mean, that's a battle cry of the left. Do you really need that?
You don't need that. You don't. Right.
And yet they go out on their yachts and go on exotic vacations.
To climate summits and private jets. Yes.
And they should. I mean, they absolutely should. But then don't come around and tell me how I should spend my money, and tell the government how much they should take from me.
There it is.
When you can't even take it out of your own pockets. If you're that altruistic, by God, be altruistic. But don't force feed it down everyone else's throats. I'm a Christian. I believe in altruism, but not forced altruism. Forced altruism goes back to what Chris was saying. That is, forced altruism is absolutely 100% unethical.
Yes.
It is an unethical thing.
Well, you cannot have forced altruism. If anything is forced, it's not altruistic.
Right. I mean, it is an oxymoron, but I use that term on purpose.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. To be able to envision what's actually happening with that, you almost have to do that, and that's appreciated. Don't get me wrong.
Anyway, my mouth is dry, so y'all take it over.
Well, take a sip, because you're going to have to keep talking. Your thought's not done yet.
All right. Give me a second. I'm going to go grab something to drink. Talk amongst yourselves. Here's the topic: Corinthian architecture. Go.
Discuss amongst yourselves.
Actually,
go ahead.
Take a moment to appreciate that fantastic shelf full of Batman and Ninja Turtles that was exposed by moving out of the way. Wow.
Yes, that's
That's
true.
all of them, buddy. And you'll notice that they're organized by series. Like, these aren't just Ninja Turtles. These are all the Ninja Turtles from one series, and these are all the Ninja Turtles from another one, and I think these are the modern cartoon.
Holy shit, you're right.
Oh yeah, hey, look at this. All right, this is the those are the Star Wars shelves,
That's my boy.
and these are the Lord of the Rings shelves. So
You have a rather succinct office there, sir.
yeah, I don't give a lot of my money altruistically, except to myself.
As long as you believe in what you're doing, sir.
But you know what?
Is
When
that
I
a
do
watermelon Gatorade?
it is a strawberry Gatorade.
Okay, you were about to be muted.
But I do often go to the Mexican section to get my Gatorades because they have some fantastic off-the-wall flavors,
Like mango.
like mango. Exactly.
Love me some mango Gatorade.
I
Hell
don't.
yeah.
That's why I don't buy them out of that section.
This is Fruit Punch.
So where's Cameron tonight? Why is Cameron not joining us?
He's drinking, because that's obviously stopping so many of us.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
apparently, because it's his wife's birthday,
Happy birthday,
Wow.
Trisha!
he's beyond the drinking.
Yeah.
So yeah, apparently he's drunk himself in conversant because
He's
of
no
his
longer
birthday.
drinking. He had a funnel installed.
Well, normally I would
Okay.
jump on in and just start
We need to
talking.
return to a viable topic now because we just stumbled upon a viewer. Hi, viewer.
Hello, welcome to the channel.
So, Cade, you were saying
Oh, I don't
about
know.
altruism.
I ended my rant and I passed the baton to you guys. So
Ah,
the what I said was forced altruism, which is oxymoronic in itself. But it is exactly the way that overtaxation is presented. It's the way a lot of things on the left, from the left perspective, are presented.
Yes, we will take the money from the rich guy who doesn't need it for his third beach home.
Right.
Never mind the fact that he got himself into a position by his own work and merit to be able to acquire the money to get that home. He doesn't need it, obviously, because,
And
well, I deem it so.
And he's a job provider.
Yes, yes. Well, besides all that, he can't be doing good things, so let's
Yeah.
ignore that part.
No, because I mean, we only live one life, so by God, we're not supposed to enjoy it. We're supposed to pass the enjoyment down to someone else who doesn't look like they're having as good a damn time.
Absolutely. All of us should only smile 5 minutes a day because that person doesn't smile but 30 seconds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got to divvy up the smiles.
Yes, you got to have it spread out evenly. We can't possibly have someone getting a leg up.
Yep.
and that is essentially the problem with the egalitarian philosophies. Is the egalitarian philosopher operates on the assumption that there is a fixed and finite quantity of wealth in existence and that quantity should be distributed evenly.
Mm-hmm.
What he ignores is the capacity of man to create additional wealth. Wealth can, in fact, be created. And what one forgets in this is that services are akin to wealth. If I'm able to provide a service to someone that I can provide in exchange for currency or product or other service and trade, then I have effectively generated new wealth.
That's true.
And there is something, I have something of value that is external to that finite wealth sum that the egalitarian tries to calculate based on.
And
Now,
to interject just a bit on that point, if you get to also a level, if we're looking at it that way, even if all the money is done with, is all distributed evenly, someone providing something that wasn't a part of that, someone else will find a way to give them something of value to provide that. That is where the wealth is created at a basic level of understanding.
Chris is stewing it. He's stewing it over.
I know that was a simple concept, and he's well beyond that here.
He can't do simple. He cannot do simple.
The main thing being, we're talking about not being able to create wealth. Everything is one pie. So if we talk about all the money that the Fed creates in 1 year as being the pie, if all that is distributed evenly and everybody is happy, but I provide something that wasn't provided when they distributed all that people wanted, someone who wants it is going to come up with something outside of that that will reward me enough to provide it to be worth doing. That is the created wealth. That is something above and beyond what is perceived as already existing.
And that is precisely why an egalitarian managed economic structure will, just like a prohibition, generate black market economics immediately.
There you have it. Absolutely. And it's only a black market because the new form of creating wealth has been deemed unacceptable by the state.
Right. Now you mentioned the Fed printing wealth. Wealth is not.
No. I didn't say printing wealth. I said printing money because wealth is looked at as money. I'm simply trying to keep this on an easy to understand basis. I'm sorry, I did not mean to have anyone confused with wealth versus money. You know me better than that.
Well, and actually what the Fed prints is currency. And their wealth, money, and currency are three distinct concepts. And that's something that's really tough for a lot of people. Currency being the printed note, the minted coin, the physical representation of the exchange. Money is entirely conceptual. Wealth is the amassing of resources, is amassed resources. So
and if your money is your resource, it can still get you what you need. It's the only way money counts as wealth. But also, owning an oil field is an awful lot of wealth if you can process it.
Well, see, oil is wealth and money because the money piece, money itself is purely conceptual. Wealth, however, is tangible. But the problem with the idea of the tangibility of wealth is that your actual wealth includes effectively everything you can trade on. So money and wealth are much more similar than money and currency or wealth and currency. Currency is just this idea of a series of IOUs whereby we are in debt to one another. Money is more about the concept of commodities which are in liquid tradability.
Mm-hmm.
Right, whereas wealth is more a sum accounting of your total assets. Those assets including not just property, physical capital, precious stones, metals, the things that you would think of as wealth. But that wealth pool also includes things like your political capital, your market networking capability.
That's one thing that's
your existing market.
Severely lacking in descriptions. I'm glad you brought that up.
So, yeah, I mean, anything that you have that can be traded on or consumed is absolutely your wealth. And land, yes, land can be consumed. Oil can be consumed. Precious stones can be consumed. Shit, every computer that's running on this desk right now and watching this show, that's you, Alex. Oh, and we have one more.
Welcome.
Oh, they went away.
Ah!
They clicked the wrong thing.
Actually,
need to break out the virtual staple gun again.
Well, I know that Alex is watching. Shawnee told me earlier that she was going to watch.
Well, she did, evidently.
Well, she said she watched a bit of it the other day. But anyway.
Yeah, I've had a couple other people tell me they've watched some chunks too. So.
Yeah, we've been getting viewers. It's pretty cool.
Which is awesome. We love anything you guys see. Tell us what you think. We need to know. We want to do this for people.
And we apologize if you were on here looking for porn.
There will be none of that. Thank you very much.
Yes, this is the Brushfire mind, not the Bush Brushfire mind.
Whoa, that's a whole new level of fetish.
Um,
I need a name thing.
Kate, are you holding up a protest sign? What is this?
I am. It's backwards though. Son of a bitch.
No. It's backwards to you. It's coming through okay, but you're overexposed. Get it out of the light some. Get it back toward.
Yeah,
What did you
I've
name
got
your
one light source? Hashtag science. Am I right?
No, pull it back toward your face some.
Yeah.
It's so loud it's taking over the camera.
Screw it. You don't need to know who I am.
It's Cade, the other. That's what I could see.
The other guy.
Oh.
I don't know what yours says, Steve.
Resident Libertarian.
Nice.
Is that what it's still on? Sorry, that's going to need edited out too.
That whole conversation.
Yeah, Resident Libertarian.
Okay.
It was Irate Libertarian one week, but that was a different story.
All right. So ethics, Chris.
No, it's even talking as we were about the differences between money, currency, and wealth. I think it's all valid, but language changes as we go along, and so many things have come to be synonymous at this point. It is so hard to what's the word I'm looking for? To kind of nitpick. It's hard to hold someone to the literal descriptors that have never been a part of their lexicon their entire lives. You can't have someone think of wealth and money as different things when everything in their lives revolves around money. Once they get money, then they realize there is wealth in political capital and things like that. But when you're looking at the majority of a nation, most of them are going to see the money as the wealth, and you're not wealthy until you've got a whole lot of something in the bank. And banks don't hold a whole lot of metals, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And not anymore, since we're not allowed to own gold. But, well, I say not allowed to, but you guys know where I'm at.
Well, as far as that, when we first came off of the gold standard, we actually were not allowed to own gold.
That's right.
That is no longer the case, but it was at the time.
But even then, it's so hard to trade in. Nobody knows what it's worth if you try to buy something in the store with it.
Right. You cannot walk into a store and just lay a chunk of gold on the counter and expect somebody with dry hands to weigh it.
And you can't take it somewhere and exchange it because you can't carry enough paper to make any worthwhile gold valuable in paper currency. So it would.
An ounce of gold is $1,200, right? Well, no, I'm not sure. I'll look it up, but.
Yeah, but I mean, if you go in and you want to buy a car with gold and you go to trade that in for money, that's a whole lot of gold to carry around.
Damn, I'm good. Yeah, 12.18 per ounce.
Well, it was down below 800 at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
Why didn't I buy gold 10 years ago?
In 2008, 9, and 10, it spiked drastically.
Yeah.
And hopped up all the way to over $2,000. In the last year or two, it's dropped back down to the, $1,000, $1,100, $1,200 range.
Yeah.
So, guys, it is now 2200. We have done our usual hour, and I think we're starting to peter out a little bit. So I'm going to call it for the night. But let me just call it and stop the broadcast, but hang out for a minute and we'll bullshit.
Yeah, right on.
So for my viewer out there, Alex, it was good having you on the show. You missed it. I actually did send you a link so you could pop on and chit-chat with us. If you want to follow that link now, you're welcome to join us and hang out to chit-chat after the show. But this has been the Brushfire Mind, ladies and gentlemen. We're here every Friday night at 2100. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. And remember, if you build a man a fire, you'll keep him warm for the evening. But if you set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Good night. And before I sign off the air, Alex, go to your Facebook Messenger and click on the link I sent you so that you can chit-chat with us for a minute after we go off the air.
Absolutely.
Do it now before I hang up. We're waiting for you. Gucci? Clicking the link.
I'm sorry, we don't have hold music. I'm trying to improvise here. I could play some ICP. There's something touching. I know you're going to edit this out later, but the first thing I saw when I woke my phone up to try to play ICP was the bottom of the section of group text from members of my band. The line says, "From your sopapillas that fell perfectly on your nipple."
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and kill this broadcast.